Growling in the Shadows, written by GayBatBoi, read to you by Avi is Evil. This fic is rated for teen and up audiences. The archive warnings are graphic depictions of violence, and the category is Gen. The fandoms are Batman, all media types, Justice League, all media types, and Superman, all media types. This is a Batfamily meets the Justice League video with, I believe, is it sort of cryptid? It doesn't say, but it's basically cryptid Batfamily, kind of. Not really. It says resurrected, but it's basically cryptid. Let's go on with the summary. The Justice League is fairly new and needs more members. Who better than the Batman, a mysterious hero from Gotham that is said to have been fighting crime for centuries. Rumors are rampant about who, or more likely what, he could be. Barry's vote is for vampire. Clark's vote is, let's please not find out. They don't know much about him, but he can't be that bad, can he? The Batfamily is dead. Or undead? All of them had died at some point, some more than once. For some reason, they just won't stay dead. That doesn't mean they come back whole each time, though. Alright. Chapter 1. Clark sighed. This seemed like a bad idea. The semi-recently formed Justice League had finally begun to fulfill their desired role. The team had been working together much better than they had at the beginning. Less bickering occurred now that he and Diana have stepped in as the leaders. Fewer mistakes were made on the field as they come to learn each other's fighting patterns. Unfortunately, even with all of these improvements, they could not be everywhere at once. The solution that had been brought up was a solid one: recruiting new heroes. They were in the Hall of Justice, holding a meeting to determine who could be added to the roster now. Superman sat at the table in their headquarters, with the other few members to discuss. Don't get him wrong, Clark liked his coworkers, had even begun to consider them friends, but Barry had just nominated one of Clark's greatest fears, the Batman. Just the thought made him shiver. Stories of the Batman had spread out of Gotham, but nothing could actually be confirmed. Theories ranged from grim vampire to half-bat, half-man, to the embodiment of shadows and evil. The last one was courtesy of their very own Flash, of course. We don't even know that Batman exists. He's one of those tales told to kids to make them behave. The story's been around for decades. He's an urban legend. We might as well try and recruit Bigfoot while we're at it. He was pretty sure the Batman did exist. Few people ever left Gotham, but all who did agreed that the Batman was real. That didn't mean Clark wanted to meet him. In fact, everything he'd heard about the hero made his city the last place Clark wanted to step. Invulnerability be damned. Even if he ignored the creepy tales of the fanged, shadowy, possibly immortal monster that prowled the city, Gotham was known for having no sunlight, meaning weakened power. Do you think Bigfoot would join if we asked? Flash, I don't think Bigfoot is real. We're not going to try and recruit Bigfoot, Barry, Diana sighed, stopping the debate before it could even start. She swears these heroes act more like kids than adults. Agreed to disagree. There's tons of sightings of the Batman. I'm sure he's real. And if we go check out Gotham, and he's not real, no harm done, right? Clark hated that Barry had made a good argument. He did not want to go to Gotham. Those sightings go back decades. Even if he does exist, he shouldn't be able to be fighting for that long. We don't know what he is, let alone who he is. He's a mystery, a seemingly violent one at that. We don't know that he will hold himself to the same standards and morals that we do. He could be a killer for all we know. Please pick someone else. Please pick someone else. Come on, Soups. In case you don't remember, most of us aren't human. Wonder Woman is hundreds of years old and still badass. Clark gave Diana an apologetic glance. And we both know that he exists. Ask anyone who's been to Gotham. They'll say he protects the city. I've even heard people leave gifts out for him. That doesn't sound like a city that's living in fear of an evil mastermind serial killer to me. Well, he could have some weird brainwashing powers, or he threatens them if they say anything bad about him. The others just look at him blankly. Fair. It was a dumb argument. Maybe he could have called in sick today. Yeah, right. As the Flash had so kindly pointed out, Clark wasn't exactly human. The team would never believe that Superman was taken down by a common cold. For once, he was kind of hoping for an alien invasion or large disaster to occur. Maybe if the meeting got interrupted, they'd forget all about the Batman before they resumed. It would at least give him a bit of time to brainstorm. He was definitely not giving the best reasons currently. It was Martian Manhunter who interrupted his thoughts this time. I have not met many humans who have met this Batman, but the ones I have talked to did not broadcast fear when thinking of him. In fact, they seemed more hopeful and safe when talking about the Batman. I don't know, this just seems like a bad idea. Is there anyone else we could try first? Clark whined. He couldn't exactly say, I don't want to go because I'm scared. The others would never let him live it down. We all know that there are precious few heroes we can ask to join us, Clark. We must ensure that the hero we ask is as strong as possible to make up for our small amount of warriors. Diana chimed in again. Always the voice of reason. A few strong teammates is far superior to many weak ones. I'm still not convinced this Batman character is a good guy at all. He pouted, arms crossed like a child throwing a tantrum. He didn't care. If Clark had to go to Gotham, he could at least sulk about it a bit first. We could always offer him the position as a trial run. If he's a good guy, then we recruit him full-time. If he's a villain, then at least we can keep a close eye on him, and take care of it if we need to. Green Arrow took Flash at Diana's side. I think it's worth a shot. It is not as if there are many heroes to choose from, and this Batman may surprise us yet. Wonder Woman smiled. Clark sighed. They were definitely going to Gotham. Well, we may as well get this over with. Let's go! I want to see what Gotham and its bad guy are like. Of course it was Flash, who was the most in a hurry to leave. Barry had started darting around the room, hoping the others would follow suit. Sue him. He wanted answers to the mystery of Gotham. He was sure his evilness and shadow theory was right, and he couldn't wait to prove it to the others. That'd teach them to not dismiss his theories as childish nonsense in the future. Should we not wait until dark? I do not believe the Batman is out during the daylight hours. Diana frowned. This is where his reporter's instinct kicked in. It's a few hours before dusk in Gotham, so if we head down now, we can talk to some locals before meeting the Batman. We should scope out the area ahead of time to see what we're getting into. Plus, some of the citizens may have advice on how to contact the Batman or interact with him. I'd hate to offend him over something we didn't understand. If he was going to have to meet this Batman creature, he did not want to do it in unfamiliar territory, and there was no way they'd get the Batman to leave Gotham. Great idea, Superman. I don't see what we're waiting for. Let's suit up and head over. Clark swore that it was early evening when they arrived at Gotham. That didn't reassure him when the city's darkness made it appear as if it were closer to midnight. How did people know when it was day or night? He may be imagining it, or it may be the fear, but he already felt as if his powers were weakening. Curse Flash and his illogical ideas. He had been hoping the citizens of Gotham were a bit more cheery than their city was. Those hopes were very quickly crushed. Every response to their existence in the city, they couldn't even make it far enough with anyone to start a conversation, was as if they were villains coming to take over. Some of the nicer people only shouted obscenities at them or screamed to get lost. The nicest citizens were those who just ignored them. Clark was sure it hadn't even been an hour. The sun was making it hard to tell, and it wasn't as if there was anywhere on his suit to hide a watch. And yet, he'd already gotten 3 coffees, 5 energy drinks, and 1 concerning unknown beverage thrown at him. To be fair, he probably stood out the most in the group, with his out-of-place, bright blue and red suit. Diana seemed to be faring much better, simply because no one dared to throw anything at her. It may have been respect or fear. He couldn't tell. Honestly, probably a bit of both. He doesn't blame them. Ja'an was clean as well, since he could just become intangible. Oliver was in a similar situation to Clark. Flash was a surprisingly easy target for them. Every object thrown at him seemed to aim exactly where he was going to be before he got there. "Look, I don't think we're getting anywhere here. Let's just head back to HQ and wait until it gets dark. Or darker, I guess. And then come back. No one here wants to help, and I'm tired of getting abused by random citizens." Green Arrow had finally said something that Superman could agree with. "I told you this was a bad idea," he muttered. "Aw, I really wanted to see the Bat Guy, though." "I said we'd come back, Flash. There's no use in us just walking around getting pelted by random crap, especially if no one's even going to talk to us." "I believe they do not approve of outside hero influences in their city. Perhaps if we approached them as citizens, they would be more willing to speak with us," Ja'an chimed in. Not a bad idea. They probably were put off by the whole of the Justice League randomly showing up in their city. "Superman should do it." Clark looked at Oliver, utterly betrayed. "Sorry, dude, you're just literally an investigative journalist, and we need some answers. Plus, no one can say no to you once you throw on that Kansas country boy charm." Clark had never been more annoyed at being complimented. "Fine, but I'm not doing monitor duty for a week." "Deal." Diana smiled. Author's notes. This is my first time writing anything, so please comment or send me constructive criticism. I'm releasing a chapter each time I finish the one after it. Also, I know they haven't been introduced yet, but here's how each of the Bat family members died. Bruce Wayne. Many decades ago. No one can remember how many, it's been so long. He died in an attack along with his parents. Alfred found him and raised him. Dick Grayson. Fell with his parents and was picked up by Bruce when he realized that Dick came back from the dead like he had. Jason Todd. Died in an explosion caused by a neighbor's homemade drug lab. Tim Drake. Parents' neglect. Damian Wayne. Died a few times, mostly sword deaths, while being raised in the League of Assassins before being rescued by the Bat family. I plan on having each one of their appearances being affected by how they died. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Summary. The League enters Gotham. Author's notes. Oh wow, I was hoping for like 2 kudos, not 30. Thanks, y'all. I got excited and wrote Chapter 3 instead of doing the math I should be doing, so enjoy. I changed most of the birds' superhero names since the lore is different. I tried making it obvious, but they are. Dick is Nightingale, Jason is Cardinal, Tim is Magpie, and Damian is Robin. I also forgot to put Tim in my chapter notes last time. Sorry, Tim. His death was caused by his parents' neglect. If you're listening to this, that was fixed at some point, so you did hear that last chapter. Alright. Now, on to the fic. It had taken Clark a whole 2 minutes to fly to his apartment in Metropolis, change, and fly back. He was definitely dragging his feet, but who could blame him? He really was trying to come at the situation with a positive point of view, but he couldn't help but feel that this Batman should not be messed with. Clark didn't have a problem with being other. He was an alien for Rao's sake, but something about the Batman screamed bad, other, dangerous in the back of his head. They were probably going to get eaten by a vampire tonight when they met the Batman. Or maybe the whole League would get possessed. He shivered. Positive thoughts, Clark. Okay. The Batman probably just used his mystery to intimidate his enemies. No one could take a brightly colored vigilante serious in this city. These people would laugh him out of town. Yeah, and it also probably helped with his secret identity. No one would think a vampire/creature/cryptid being would have a human persona. That worked all the time for him. No one thinks the alien Superman had been raised on Earth with a human family. After using his amazing reasoning skills, Clark felt much better about meeting this supposed hero. He walked up to a random Gotham sidewalk, searching for someone who seemed interested in talking to him. It wasn't difficult to see that no one wanted to stop for a stranger. Not that he blamed them necessarily. Even with the Batman, Gotham was known for its high crime rate. The lack of sun made him feel slightly on edge. He had been walking for a while without luck when a young woman was in front of Clark, heading in his direction. She was engrossed in a book, so she didn't immediately cross the street at the sight of him, like many others had. This was as good a chance as any, he supposed. "Hello, ma'am, I'm lost." The woman pulled out pepper spray faster than Clark could react, which was saying something, considering he was Superman. "Let me stop you right there, asshole. I'm not an idiot. I'm not interested in whatever you're trying to get or sell or whatever, and I will pepper spray you." Clark had no idea what to say. The woman took a second look at him. "Oh, outsider, huh?" Clark scratched the back of his neck. "That obvious?" "You look like Metropolis barfed out a grown man." "What?" "Look, get lost before you die, Metro. You won't last more than a day trying to stay here." Clark frowned, but before he could respond, she walked past him and didn't turn around. "Kinda rude, but okay." "Trust me, kid, that was a nice Gotham greeting." Clark spun around and saw a man sitting on the stairs of a building. He hadn't even noticed this guy until he spoke. "Didn't mean to spook ya, but I've been there. Moved here from Star City as a teen." "So she was just trying to scare me?" The man laughed. "No, she was right. You're way too Metropolis to make it here." What did that even mean? "But I remember the first few months in Gotham. It sucks trying to learn the rules everyone here knows from birth." This was Clark's chance. Someone was finally willing to talk to him. "I'm here for a job." Not a lie. "I've heard about the Batman a few times, but no one wants to tell me anything. I was hoping someone would help me." Clark gave a sad smile, hoping his southern charm was working. These Gothamites seem unaffected by everything. "Sure you are, and I'm Robin." "Oh, I'm Clark. Nice to meet you." Robin laughed again. It seemed he did that every time Clark opened his mouth. "Yeah, you're definitely not going to survive. I'm not Robin. He's one of the birds. You don't really know anything, do ya?" Well, he just moved here. How is he supposed to know these things? Except he hadn't moved here, but if he had, he'd definitely consider leaving. These people were all rude. "Look, I don't think you'll live here for more than a week, but I'm feeling nice, and I don't have to be in for a bit, so I'll give you some advice." Maybe they weren't all rude. Well, it was still a rude way to help someone, but at least he was helping. "Thanks, I appreciate it." Yeah, whatever. Listen close, 'cause I'm not repeating myself. Got it? You wanted to know about the bats and his birds, yeah? Birds? Ugh, right. You don't even know who Robin is. Fuck, man. He felt like he should apologize to this guy for existing at this point. "Look, are you going to tell me about this guy or not? I've had more drinks thrown at me today than I've ever seen in my life. I'm tired, and I want to just go home and take a fucking nap. But I can't leave until I know more about this Batman guy." Clark was definitely losing his patience in this city. "All right, Clark. Maybe you do have what it takes to survive here." The man smirked. "First rule, never call the Batman. Got it? You're practically screaming that you've never been here. That makes you an easy target. Second, it's the bat and the birds. Outsiders never seem to remember the birds, and that'll fuck you up fast." "So there's more than the Batman... the bat?" "Yeah, the birds are like little bats, I guess. Kid sounds weird for an immortal unknown creature, so I guess they're like his spawn, you could say." "You guess? You don't sound like you know much more than me." Not true. He didn't even know who these birds' children were, but at this point, Clark just wanted information, and then to go home. He was very serious about that nap earlier. "Fine, Metro. If you already know everything, I won't bother." Clark's mouth snapped shut. "That's what I thought. No one knows what the bats or the birds are. They sure as fuck aren't human. Most accepted theories that they died and came back, but no one really knows. Anyway, mentions of the bats go back as far as Gotham's history is recorded. He knows everything that happens in this city. Some say he is the city, but I'll leave that speculation out of this. He protects Gotham and her people, as long as they mean no harm. He watches over at night and takes criminals to Arkham or Blackgate. The birds are less strict on the whole arresting part. If they feel you've committed a serious enough offense, you're never seen again." "Okay, but who are these birds? How many are there?" "There's 4 so far. Seems a new one pops up every few decades." "Decades? I thought you said they were like kids." Immortal beings? Hello?
What, do you think the Bats is a 200-year-old man running around fighting crime? They seem to age a bit, but way slower than humans. They look like kids and teenagers, but guarantee most have been around longer than you. Now stop fucking interrupting me.
Sorry, he murmured.
There's bats and 4 birds. Nightingale's been around the longest, then Cardinal, Magpie, and Robin is the newest. Imagine them as super creepy, deadly, haunted brothers. Got it? Bats may not kill, but birds certainly do, especially if you fuck with the younger ones. Stay on the good side. Got it?
Clark nodded. He was worried if he said anything, the man would stop and go inside. This was more information than they had ever heard about Gotham.
You said you'd been walking around a while. Did you notice the windowsills?
The windowsills? He looked at the apartment behind the man. The windowsills were like mini platforms or baskets. Each one seemed to be handmade. They're big?
Fuck, man, you're making this so hard. They're for the birds. People leave them gifts for the protection. Not sure if it helps, but it's basically tradition now. The birds take them if you leave good enough gifts.
Like what?
Depends. He shrugged. Whose protection do you want, and from what? People have figured out the best gifts over time. Each bird has preferences. Nightingale likes hoodies and blankets, especially ones with bright colors.
Bright colors?
Yeah, he's weird, even for Gotham. Cardinal likes books, but will only grab ones that interest him. Classics seem to be taking the most. Magpie likes junk. You know the drawer that you have where you put the random crap in and forget about it? He likes that stuff. Dead batteries, wires, rusted nails, anything. Supposed to be how he got his name. Robin is the newest, so it's more tentative, but he seems to like animals. Stuffed animals are a popular gift.
Okay, blankets, books, trinkets, animals. Got it.
Good, you want to put your seal out soon to get on the bird's good side. Most of the people don't have them are criminals. Who wants to give stuffed animals to the creature you put in jail, you know? You make them your own, but you can find them at any store, too.
The man got serious suddenly.
This is the most important thing. Do not mess with someone else's sill. The birds don't fuck around with tampered things. They'll stop taking from that sill. People do not forgive that shit.
How do they know it's been tampered with?
They just do. They know everything about Gotham, remember? They just know whose box is whose, and who left which gift. Riddler tried leaving gifts once at a seal as a trap. They burned the apartment unit down. Just the one unit. Neighbors didn't even realize there was a fire till later.
Just as he finished his sentence, the lamppost near them lit up.
Look, I gotta head in. You do not want to be outside past dark.
Wow, it was much later than Clark had realized. The League should be getting ready to find the bat soon.
You better hurry home if you don't want to end up penguin food. Good luck, dude. You're gonna need it.
He turned and slammed the door behind him. Thanks, I guess? Maybe they should bring gifts tonight. It couldn't hurt, he supposed. Clark didn't want to test his luck in Gotham. He'd talk it over with the others outside of city limits. He listened around for heartbeats, making sure no one was looking, and took off towards the others. And that is the end of Chapter 2. Author's Notes. So this one just turned into exposition. Hopefully you enjoyed learning about the boys. Not super happy with the ending. It feels kind of sudden, but I wasn't really sure how to end it. The Bat and Birds will join us in the next chapter, I promise. As always, comments, suggestions, questions, and constructive criticism are welcome. Chapter 3. Summary. The League returns to Gotham. Enter Bat Brothers. Author's Notes. Thank you to everyone reading this. I'm so happy people are enjoying it. Added trigger warnings for the birds' deaths, since it affects their appearances. Dick/Nightingale, fell, broken bones/blood. Jason/Cardinal, explosions, burns, blood. Tim/Magpie, neglect, weight, unhealthy appearances. Damien/Robin, stabbed, blood. Also, I didn't know how to make it clear while writing, but Jason's red hood is literally a hoodie type hood, not a helmet. Now, on to the fic. Superman set Green Arrow down once the League landed at the Hall of Justice. Oliver muttered a quick, unhappy thanks, and they all headed inside. Everyone took their usual seats around the table. All right, Superman, what did you learn? Diana got straight to the point, as usual. Clark sighed.
He had given them the quickest rundown he could. The briefing still ended up being over half an hour. Flash and Arrow kept interrupting to ask questions or yell.
So he is a vampire, or they are, I guess. Either way, I was right.
Idiot, he clearly just said they don't know what they are. I'm so not giving you any money for that.
Clark had had way too long of a day for this. Ja'an interrupted Barry and Ollie's fight.
Well, the citizens clearly viewed the Batman and his brood as protectors, if they're leaving gifts for him. I don't know, Jahan. He did tell me that the birds make people disappear. That seems more like a zombie mob than superheroes. Yes, but you said that the Batman does not kill. We can hardly judge him for his associates' actions. We did not go to Gotham to recruit the birds. I suppose you're right, but if we're going to try and recruit him, we should bring gifts, though, as a sign of goodwill.
I agree, Superman, Diana chimed in.
Why would vampires want gifts?
Oliver groaned at Barry's questions.
Flash, I swear, if you don't shut up about vampires, I'm gonna ask the Bat Guy to eat you. We'll get to see if he's a vampire, and you'll be quiet. And the Bat gets to eat. Win, win, win. I don't win,
Flash muttered petulantly. Clark rolled his eyes, but honestly, he was mostly used to the duo's antics by now. Diana turned towards him. All right, you told us what the birds like for gifts, but what does the Bat like?
Fuck.
You didn't even find out what Batman wants?
The guy didn't mention it. I'd like to see you keep track of all this information while walking through Gotham.
Come on, that's the one reason we even went. Flash, drop it. It's all right, Superman. We shall get gifts for his children and hope that this is enough to appease him. Clark did feel a bit bad. He did, however, doubt that Barry could have remembered half of the things he had. It would be fine, right? It's not like the Bat was a god demanding an offer or anything. Shit, was that what was happening? He was definitely not about to throw himself under the bus with that hypothesis.
The sun just set over Gotham. Supposedly, the Bat only comes out at night, so he's likely not active yet. I vote we split up and each get a gift, then reconvene here,
Martian Manhunter proposed. Everyone agreed that this was a good idea. They needed gifts, and heading to Gotham now wouldn't help anyone.
There's 5 of us, but we only need 4 gifts, since someone didn't find out what bats he wanted.
Clark was so going to make sure Ollie froze next time he flew him somewhere.
Who's doubling up?
Arrow, you and Flash can team up for this one, Diana said. He was pretty sure she also didn't want to team up with either of them. It would be cruel to dump one of the Chaos duo off on Ja'an as well. Clark gave a small smirk.
Oh, why do I always have to team up with someone?
Well, you could walk, Ollie, but I'm not sure you'd make it back in time. Arrow frowned, but didn't argue. Clark thought he heard a very quiet, stupid, speedy jerks come from his direction, though.
All right, the list the guy gave me was a brightly colored blanket or hoodie, a classical book, junk, I guess, and a stuffed animal. Who wants what? I will probably be best suited for the so-called junk option,
Ja'an stated.
I call stuffed animal!
Barry jumped up. Clark and Diana looked at each other. I shall get the book. That left Clark with a brightly colored hoodie.
Good with me. Everyone get your item and meet back here. Try and pick something good. We do not want to offend the Bat the very first time we meet him. Don't take any longer than an hour. I don't want to catch him at the end of a patrol.
The others grimaced in sync. The end of patrols sucked. Everyone was tired, sore, and ready to go to bed.
Good luck.
Flash saluted, grabbing Ollie, and left with a burst of light. Martian Manhunter nodded and disappeared through a wall. Diana and he walked to the entrance before heading their separate ways. Superman was in a random store in Metropolis. It's not as if the city was too far for him. He could travel around the world in a heartbeat, and he didn't feel comfortable shopping in a different city as Superman. It wasn't until he was in the store that he realized he could have just changed and shopped as Clark Kent. That would have been easier. The people of Metropolis were used to seeing him, however, and only a few asked for autographs. Most of the people just waved, and he waved back. It would be rude not to. Metropolis was definitely better than Gotham, he thought smugly. Okay, a brightly colored sweater. What color? Shit, what size would he get?
The man had said they were like kids, but the sweaters were the oldest. So maybe a teenager? A teenager who was decades old. Wow, his life was weird. Clark decided that an adult large would work. Too big was better than too small. He just hoped Nightingale wasn't 4 or something. He headed to the brightest clothes rack he could find. He ended up narrowing his choices down to a sweater that had a landscape of a bright yellow wheat field on it, with a bright blue sky, and a hoodie that looked like the carpet of a roller skate rink. Clark gave up and grabbed them both. Waiting in line and checking out as Superman was one of the more awkward experiences of his life. At least he'd remember to change next time. Maybe he should have just shopped in another city after all. He could have just pretended to be someone in a Superman costume. Clark sighed and flew to the Hall of Justice, his bag of clothes in hand. He walked into the meeting room to see Diana and Jean already sitting down, presents in front of them.
How did you do?
He asked. It was going to take a minute for Flash to come back. Not only was he chronically late, but he also got distracted by any little thing, and he had Oliver with him. They may as well make conversation while they wait. They went well. I had to search through some of my old boxes, but I found my copy of Frankenstein. That is considered a classic, is it not? Clark nodded. Good. Mary was a good friend. I'm quite happy people are enjoying her writing.
I didn't think you'd left home yet when she was alive.
I may have snuck out a few times. Anyway, I'm sure that the Cardinal will appreciate this copy. Mary gave it to me, but it has just been gathering dust. Better that it goes to someone that will read it.
My ventures also went well.
Jean joined the conversation. He showed Clark a shoebox that he had filled with an assortment of items. Clark could see screws, wires, a couple of washers, along with a few keyboard keys. Where do you even find those? And a tiny rubber duck? He wasn't going to ask.
How did you fare, Superman? I forgot to change. Never making that mistake again.
Clark sighed.
Other than that, it went all right. I wasn't sure which of these Nightingale would like, so I got them both.
He stated as he pulled the 2 articles out.
They are definitely bright.
Diana smiled. I am sure the bird will like them.
Thanks, Dee.
The doors flew open, and Barry zoomed into the room with Green Arrow on his back. Hi guys, look what we got! Flash dropped Oliver and grabbed the bag he'd been holding. Clark could hear a small ow come from the man on the floor. Barry dumped the bag out onto the table. We weren't sure what the bird would prefer, so we got a few.
You got him a stuffed bat?
Yeah, it's funny. He'll love it. Clark had to admit, it was kind of funny. He looked at the others and saw an alligator, a panda, a cow, and a cat. At least he wasn't the only one who went with the get more than one approach. He doesn't think Martian manhunters counted. He sighed.
Well, I guess we better head back to Gotham before it gets too late.
They hadn't really considered how they would find the bat once they were ready. Clark didn't really want to stand in the street to get assaulted again, though, so he suggested the rooftops. They chose a high building, but not the highest. The League wanted the bat to be able to see them before they saw him. Hopefully, he would realize they were not enemies.
Should we have wrapped the gifts? Little late now, Arrow. Plus, they may assume it was a trap if they couldn't see what was in the boxes. Good point.
Ollie sat down on the roof. Clark shrugged and sat as well. Who knew how long they would be waiting? For all they know, the bat isn't patrolling tonight, or will choose to avoid them. Soon, they were all sitting together, waiting. Flash and Arrow played tic-tac-toe with the grime covering the roof. Jean seemed to be meditating, and Diana was reading the gift she brought. Clark wasn't fooled. All of them were on high alert, in case one of the bats or birds showed up. Gotham was eerily quiet at night, nothing like the bustling of Metropolis. There were few cars and fewer people. Soon, Clark began to hear birds chirping nearby. Wait, was that the birds? Were they actual birds? His sweaters were definitely not going to fit him if that was the case. He looked up and made eye contact with Jean. They both heard it, so he wasn't imagining it. Clark listened, but he couldn't make out any heartbeats or breathing. Okay, maybe they were undead. He refused to consider vampires on principle. Diana looked at Clark before standing up.
Hello? Birds? We are the Justice League. We mean no harm. We've actually brought you gifts. A citizen told us things you may like. You can come out if you like, she said calmly. Wonder Woman was definitely the diplomat of the group. More chirping could be heard. It sounded off. He couldn't tell how, but something felt wrong about it. Sometimes a sound like a cat hiss would appear in the warbles and trills. They must be communicating with each other, so there was more than one. Clark wondered if Nightingale was one of them. He kind of wanted to see if the bird would like his gifts. A few minutes passed before he saw a shadow move. He slowly focused on the area, not wanting to scare the bird off. The bird appeared to be a young adult. He was crouching, as if ready to bolt. It was hard to call him a man. He appeared to be more of a man-shaped creature. Just like the chirping, something was just off. As the bird exited the shadow more, Clark could see him a bit more clearly. He definitely looked like a corpse. His face was pale, framing his white, pointy teeth. It was hard to look away from the mouth filled with sharp fangs, but when he looked up, he was just as unnerved. The bird's eyes were fully black, without irises or whites. A domino mask surrounded his eyes. His outfit was black, with bits of blue dripping through. Literally, it looked like it was blue blood. The blue flowed to his hands before tapering off. His fingers faded into inky black talons. The worst part, Clark decided, was how he moved. His movements were almost glitchy, not the smooth ones someone would expect. At a closer look, he could tell the reason. His bones had multiple breaks that had never healed correctly. Way more than someone should be able to survive, Clark thought. As he looked at the bird looked back. Clark made eye contact, and the creature cocked his head. He couldn't help but compare the movement to that of a curious cat. Clark smiled, trying to appear friendly.
Hello, are you one of the birds?
He didn't seem like the bat, too young, but Clark wanted confirmation. The others quickly looked to where his gaze was focused. The bird looked at them for a second, making sure they didn't move any more than that, then chirped at him. After a second, he rasped, Nightingale.
Hi, Nightingale. I'm Superman. We brought gifts for you and your brothers.
Nightingale seemed to perk up at that. He focused on the bag next to Clark's foot.
This one's for you.
The bird smiled, mouth too wide and teeth too much like knives. He tried not to shiver. Nightingale didn't move closer, so Clark slowly reached towards the bag. He grabbed it with the bird's eyes laser-focused on him, and rolled it at the shadow. Once it was in reach of Nightingale, and out of Clark's, he snatched it up and ripped the paper bag, like a dog shredding a toy. He lifted the yellow and blue field sweater first. Holding it up, he frowned and threw it back at Clark, before reaching for the next one. He smiled again at the one with the funky pattern and quickly jerked it over his head. When it was on, the blue had been smeared a bit over the front, but Nightingale didn't seem to mind.
You don't like this one?
Clark frowned. The happy bird looked at him again, staring into his soul before uttering, Scarecrow. Superman looked at the sweater, and sure enough, there was a scarecrow in the field. Maybe he didn't like them since he was a bird? He wasn't about to ask, after all. He had still liked the other one. Clark was glad he grabbed both.
Are the other birds here? We have gifts for them, too.
He turned around to show the gifts the others had brought, when he froze. Behind Barry, next to his feet, was a feral-looking 10-year-old. The shredded stuffed animal in his teeth added to the feral look. The League frowned at him for a second, before collectively turning to where he was looking. What the fuck, kid? Barry yelled and scrambled away. A growl came from the shadows behind the kid, along with one behind Clark, obviously from the eldest bird. A red man, larger than Nightingale, was crouched a foot away from the boy, as if guarding over him. The man had said the elder two were protective, so this was probably Cardinal. His red hoodie and accents on his costume supported the guess. The new ones had black eyes and hair like Nightwing, other than the white stripe and cardinals that poked out from under the hood. The red made the blood on Cardinal's outfit look a lot more realistic. That and the burned patches made him look like he had just walked out of a fire. The little one's was more of a greenish goo. He must be Magpie or Robin. Based on his fixation with the animals, he guessed Robin, but the shredded one in his mouth made him uncertain. There was a lot more of the green than of the others' colors.
Apologies, young warriors, you just frightened us.
Thank Rao for Diana.
You must be Cardinal.
The red bird cocked his head. They were definitely brothers.
I brought you a book if you'd like.
Cardinal glanced between her and the book warily. Robin had gathered the other stuffed animals, other than the ripped-up alligator, and stuffed them in his costume. He darted behind his bigger brother, hissing at Barry as he did. Diana took a step forward. Each bird froze. She put the book down and then backed up again. Cardinal nabbed the book and gave it to Robin, who had climbed on his back without looking. Nightingale looked mad at having the league between him and the other birds. He slowly inched around them before he was side by side with the other two. Diana shifted to get everyone's attention. Cardinal seemed to like her most of the league, but Nightingale kept his eyes trained on Clark. He was trying not to let it freak him out. They didn't seem bad, but something just made the blue bird's gaze feel like ice running down his spine.
Is Magpie here? We brought him trinkets we thought he would enjoy.
Diana smiled again. Nightingale glanced over to Wonder Woman and gave a short,
Sleep.
At the same time, an unidentified trill came from a different shadow. Everyone whipped their heads towards it, even the birds. In the moment of confusion, a teen darted towards Ja'an, grabbed the shoebox, and ran to the other birds. It seemed like brothers still acted like brothers, even when they were undead. Nightingale looked at Magpie, betrayed, while Cardinal looked proud. It was the first time he wasn't glaring. Robin continued to glare, but rolled his eyes. Clark thinks, anyway. The black eyes made it a bit hard to tell. Clark took a second to look at the newer bird. His color was a dark yellow, hard to see in the dark. There wasn't much on him. He practically looked clean next to the others. If he wasn't so pale and incredibly skinny, Clark would almost think he was alive. Ignoring the eyes, fangs, and claws, of course. The kid did look extremely small. He could also tell why Nightingale felt like Magpie should be sleeping. The bags under his eyes seemed to take up half his face. Magpie ducked under Nightingale and stuck his face in the shoebox, completely blocking everyone else out as he discovered his new treasure.
We were hoping to speak to Batman, the Bat. Is he around, do you know?
Each bird looked up at Diana and squinted their eyes, each of their mismatching dominoes narrowing.
Why?
Cardinal growled, the first to speak other than the eldest.
We have heard that he is a formidable opponent, and would like to ask him to join us.
This seemed to anger the birds.
Take,
Robin screeched.
No take.
The two older brothers started growling again, while Magpie ducked closer to Nightingale.
Leave,
Cardinal demanded.
We don't...
Leave!
He lunged towards Barry, who was closest to him. Flash yelped and ran behind Arrow.
Not welcome,
the bluebird added, before they disappeared back into the shadows. Clark couldn't keep track of them without a heartbeat or breathing to listen to. They were gone. The League members looked at each other, a bit lost, before heading back to the Hall of Justice.
And that is the end of Chapter 3. Author's notes. This one really got away from me. So sorry for the long chapter. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't catch it, Dick didn't like the sweater because of the rogue scarecrow, not because he's a bird, and the alligator reminded Damien of Killer Croc, which is why he ruined it. As always, comments, suggestions, questions, and constructive criticism are welcome. Chapter 4. Summary. The Bat Boys return home. Author's notes. Holy shit, 174 kudos is amazing. I love y'all. Hope you keep enjoying the story. Wrote chapter 5 instead of listening to my math professor. Colon 3. The bat family communicates in their own language made of clicks, whistles, etc., so they sound like birds. I have it in italics to show the difference, but I wasn't sure if I should underline it. Let me know if you think that would be easier to read. I'm expecting roughly 7 chapters right now, but I've only written 5, so it could change. Reader's notes, it ended up being 6. Alright, now onto the chapter. Dick watched as Damien climbed up the wall of the bat cave to a hidden crevice. He could see him settle in and fume in the small hideaway that Dick had discovered when he was an only child. He had realized that they weren't going to be able to focus on patrol, and had led his younger brothers home. Robin hadn't let go of Cardinal until they were securely in the hideout. The way Jason was still watching Damien made Dick think that he'd have preferred if the small bird stayed attached to him. Magpie had started to slow as they neared the cave, so Nightingale ended up carrying him for the last leg of the trip. Tim really was supposed to be asleep. Once home, he had set the little bird in the chair by the bat computer and watched as he was instantly out. He was glad Bruce had told them to stick together. A few notes had been left in window baskets, warning them of strange heroes out during the day. He shuddered to think what could have happened had one of the younger birds run into them alone. Dick was pacing between the bat computer and the wall, growling. How dare some strangers show up in their city and try and steal their father away? As if a few gifts would ever be enough to rip B away from them. Nightingale knew, however, that he should try and stay calm, for the others' sake. He stopped behind the chair Tim was asleep in and took a deep breath. Tim must be having nightmares again, if he was tired enough to sleep so quickly after their encounter with the Justice League. Dick knew he worried that he'd wake up again one day and be back at Drake Manor, alone. He tried to sleep in the room with the little magpie when possible, in case he woke up scared. Tonight, he hadn't wanted to let Jason and Damien out alone, not with trespassers in town. He trusted his little brothers, but those two individually were not the most even-tempered of people. Together, they were like dynamite waiting to explode.
Come on, baby bird,
he chirped, scooping up Tim. His throat was a bit sore from just the few words of English he'd spoken. It had been ages since any of them had bothered using the language. Looking back, Dick thinks the last time he'd spoken more than a few words was when he was learning the language, freshly dead. He hadn't known English while he was alive, but he couldn't very well interrogate criminals if he didn't know what they were saying.
Jay, I'm taking Tim Tam to the nest. I'll be back down soon.
Jason nodded, still not looking away from the hole Damien had disappeared into. Tim didn't stir the entire walk up the stairs. He only shifted once Dick finally made it to the master bedroom, where they all slept. A giant circular mattress took up the middle of the room. Bits of black and white peeked through the brightly colored blankets it was covered with. Dick loved the blankets he was gifted. The fact that he could annoy Bruce by covering his emo father in orange and green blankets also helped. He pushed some of Damie's stuffed animals out of the way to make room for Tim. He set the little bird down in the nest, tucking him in gently. Tim squinted a bit, blinking blearily back at Dick.
Don't worry, little bird. Just go back to sleep.
Tim had barely been awake, and with that comforting sentence, he drifted off again. Dick was proud of the progress they'd made. Tim hadn't expected anyone to notice him when he came to live with them, let alone care. Now, he was able to finally trust Dick's assurances without doubt. It had taken a lot of time and effort, but Dick knew it was absolutely worth it in the end. He headed down to talk to Jason about the League situation and wait for B to come home from his own patrol. The boys weren't even supposed to be back yet, but had headed home early after watching the heroes leave. Their dad shouldn't take more than an hour or so, hopefully.
Master Dick, may I ask why you are back home so early?
Trust Alfred to always know what was happening in the manor. Dick was sure the butler had known that they'd entered the cave, if he didn't know they were heading home before that. He probably waited for Dick to come back down from the upstairs bedroom to avoid waking Tim. Everyone knew the bird needed more sleep and relaxation.
Trouble, Alf. The so-called Justice League did end up showing itself. They want to take B.
Alfred raised an eyebrow at that.
I suppose the new sweater is unrelated to that meeting, then?
Dick blushed. He'd completely forgotten about his sweater and all the chaos of emotions he'd experienced. He felt like maybe he should get rid of it. It was from an enemy, after all. But it was also a pretty cool sweater, and Dick liked the design.
I'll need to warn Dad that they plan on trying to steal him away when he gets back.
He was definitely avoiding talking about the sweater. It's not like Jay was about to throw away his new book.
I am heading back to the cave to wait for him. Very well, young sir. If your father is late, I do not want you staying up all night. Go to sleep once the sun starts to rise. I know, Alfie.
Dick was nearly 100. He was most certainly not a young sir. Compared to Alfred, though, who knew? Their grandfather was an utter mystery. Dick didn't even think Bruce knew anything about what he was or how old he could be. Reaching the cave again, he saw that neither bird had moved while he was gone. He always had to be the responsible one, didn't he? Not that Dick minded. He loved his little brothers more than anything, even if they were annoying assholes sometimes.
Tim's asleep. I don't think he'll be waking up again until tomorrow night.
Jason grunted. He could be so much like Bee sometimes. It was why they had a tendency to butt heads. Dick knew Jay loved Tim too, but he took his role as Damien's protector very seriously. The youngest bird had died, more than any of the others had. His home life, before Bee found out about him, had not been pleasant. Jason had related to Damien's struggles more than anyone else in the family. Bruce and Dick had had loving families when they were alive, and Tim had barely interacted with his. Jason and Damien, however, had loved their families, even as they hurt them. Jason was going to make sure nothing like that ever happened to his baby brother again. Dick sat next to Jason on the table. He didn't know what they were going to do. If the Justice League truly tried to take Bee away, he wasn't sure the birds could stop them. Batman wouldn't go with them willingly, obviously, but the League had literally flown away. They could survive death, but that didn't mean they could beat up literal aliens. He sat in silence for a while, thinking of future possibilities. It was getting closer to dawn, when Dick felt his little brothers should probably join Tim in the nest. He'd go up too once Bee came home, or whenever the sun did rise. He wasn't foolish enough to disobey Alfred.
Jay, you should take Baby Bat up to the nest and get some sleep,
he trilled.
What, so we have to go to bed but you don't? No, I'm waiting for Bruce to get back too.
Jason growled, never one to give in without a fight.
Davy will get cramps sleeping up in the hideaway, and I don't want Tim to wake up alone after a nightmare either. I'll head up soon if Bee isn't back yet. I promise.
Jason sighed.
Fine, but if you're not up in an hour, I'm coming down to drag you to the nest myself.
Of course.
He grinned. Jason did love them all, even if he could have some trouble showing it without resorting to violence. Little Wing climbed up to the hideout to get Damien. It took some coercion to get the small bird out of the crevice. The two older brothers couldn't fit in it anymore, so Jason had to convince Damien to come to the edge before he could grab him. Damien resisted for a second, before clinging to Jason as he had earlier. He was still holding the small stuffed bat by one of his wings. Dick knew he was going to be grumpy and clingy for the next few days. He only had to wait a little over 15 minutes before the Batmobile sped into the cave. Batman looked at Dick as he got out of the car, a bit confused.
Dick, shouldn't you be asleep by now? I didn't mean to make you worry. I just had a little
Dick stopped him before he could start rambling. It was a habit Bruce had when he was worried about one of the birds.
Dad, we need to talk.
And that is the end of Chapter 4. Author's notes. Hope you all enjoyed Chapter 4. I did edit this on my phone, so apologies if there are any typos/errors. Feel free to point them out. As always, Comments, suggestions, questions, and constructive criticisms are welcome. Chapter 5. Summary. Batman is not happy. Author's notes. I can't believe this fic has over 200 kudos. Thank you all. I have completed the story as well. I ended up combining 6 and 7, so there will only be 6 chapters. I'll be posting the last chapter in a bit once I've edited this. Now, on to the fic. Bruce was freaking out. Usually, when one of his kids said, "Dad, we need to talk," something horrible has happened. Not only that, but it seemed like his eldest had stayed up late just to have this conversation.
What's wrong? Are your brothers okay? Are you okay?
Dick seemed fine, but he couldn't help an extra glance over just to make sure. There was no blood or extra broken bones. He'd cleaned up after coming back from patrol. Bruce wasn't happy that they chose to recreate their deaths each night, but it did scare criminals. The door to the medical room was open and seemed empty. His other sons must be upstairs, meaning they weren't too badly injured.
We're fine. Just shaken up, I suppose. We ran into the Justice League.
Bruce was very happy he told them no single patrols after hearing the League was in town.
They seemed nice enough. They even brought us gifts. After that, though, they wanted to talk to you. We asked why, and they said they wanted you to go with them. We chased them off, but I'm not sure we can beat them if they return.
The League thought they could just come into his city and scare his kids? Try and what? Give them gifts and think they'd just give Bruce away? Gothamites gave birds gifts because they were protectors, not because they were trying to buy them off. Some offered him gifts, but he never took them, unless they were for his kids. He didn't need anything for what he did, but he loved how excited one of the birds would get over a new treasure. How dare the Justice League trespass and sully their city's customs?
I see. Don't worry, we won't let them split up the family.
He gave a protective growl.
I don't see how we can beat them, B. They have a literal goddess on their side. What if they come for you while you're on patrol? Even if we were with you, we're no match against the whole League.
Dick was obviously working himself up. He was an amazing big brother, but sometimes he would take everything on to spare his little brothers. He always wanted to be the strong one, never the one who needed their support.
Come here, my little bird. I promise we will not let anything happen. Besides, you know Alfred wouldn't let me miss family dinner. He'd beat them all just to drag me back by the ear.
He joked, not entirely sure it wasn't true. Alfred was a force of nature. B wrapped his arms around his first baby, comforting him the best he could. Dick sniffled, and he leaned into his father. Bruce knew Dick wouldn't let the younger birds know how scared he was right now, but it was just the two of them. He cried for a while, quietly, before leaning back again and wiping off his face. There was no way in hell he was going to let the Justice League get away with doing this to his babies. They had been through enough in life and in death. They deserved to be happy and worry-free.
Come on, my nightingale. Let's get up to the nest. I'm sure we'll all feel better after a big cuddle pile and a good day of rest.
He tried to make his chirping comforting. Dick hummed and nodded, forehead still leaning on his dad's chest. Bruce scooped up his son into his arms. Dick was barely any heavier than he'd been when he first moved in, when he'd first died. The reminder made him ache. His little songbird had brought music to the manor after years of Alfred dealing with Bruce's sulking. He climbed the stairs to the bedroom, never putting Dick down. He was still in his bat suit when he reached the nest, but he didn't want to put his baby down when he was upset. When he approached the bed, Jason lifted his head slightly. Damien was wrapped around his torso, facing him, both on their sides. Tim was on the other side of Damien, curled into a ball of blankets.
Lay with your brothers while I change.
He whistled quietly. Dick whined and tightened his hold around Bruce. He had no idea how he was going to change now, but his sons would be mad once they realized they had to cuddle with his hard Kevlar suit.
Jason needs a hug, baby.
Dick immediately turned to Jason,
who squawked quietly at B. Manipulating his son probably wasn't the best parenting move, but it worked. He quickly changed, leaving his suit in the corner of the closet. He'd bring it back downstairs tomorrow. There was no way he was leaving this room until at least sundown. Breakfast at nightfall was glum. No one had wanted to separate from the pile. They had all found comfort in the physical assurance that their family was together. Alfred had other ideas, so here they were at the table eating pancakes.
You don't need to worry about the leak, boys. I'll take care of them.
Bruce didn't actually have a plan yet, but he had to do something. He needed to give the birds peace of mind. They didn't need to be worrying about their father disappearing from patrol, never to return.
I want all 4 of you to stick together on patrol tonight. They shouldn't come back, but if they do, alert me immediately. Don't interact with them. I'll handle it.
The boys all nodded, still too asleep to speak. They seemed a bit more relaxed than Dick had last night. Hopefully, it stayed that way once they woke up more.
No roof tag either.
That seemed to wake them up.
What? No way!
Father.
Just for a few nights while I deal with the Justice League situation, I promise. Why don't you all go play video games for a while, before we head out for the first shift?
His kids loved protecting the city. They'd do it all night if he allowed it. Eventually, he'd managed to compromise with 2 nightly patrols, one early in the night and one for a few hours before bed. The birds grumbled but raced each other to the sitting room, with games once they finished eating. Sometimes Bruce would join them. He always wanted to spend more time with them, but today he had plans to make. He strolled down to the Batcave. He'd take care of everything once the boys left for first patrol. For now, he had research to do. The Justice League would learn that they couldn't mess with his kids without consequences. The League sat down in their seats as usual. Diana had instructed everyone to go home and rest after leaving Gotham. They'd stayed up for a good portion of the night, waiting for the bat or the birds to show up. Needless to say, they were disheartened by the outcome. Superman wished that the birds had at least given them a chance to explain. They didn't want the bat to leave its home city, just join them for large-scale disasters and the occasional meeting. Sure, he'd been scared of them at first, but now he just felt bad. They were just kids scared to lose their dad, not evil creatures torturing his city.
Maybe we should go back and explain? If we can talk to them again, we can tell them we don't mean any harm.
I do not believe the birds would appreciate us returning to Gotham. They are sure to take our presence as a threat. We would not make it far enough for conversation. Diana probably had a point, but Clark was feeling miserable. He didn't like being seen as a villain. Everything he did was to try and make the world better, and now some kids thought he was trying to kidnap their father.
Maybe we can get a message to them?
Flash asked, hopeful.
How do you suppose we do that, Barry?
Arrow replied. He had a point.
What about the windowsills? He shouted. We could leave a note in one of them so they can get to it without having to see us.
Clark sighed.
Remember what the man said? If you touch someone's sill, they won't take from it again. They'll know we messed with it and avoid it. Plus then, we'd have an angry Gothamite on our hands, which personally is terrifying.
Oh yeah, could we make our own?
Then they will know that it is ours,
Martian Manhunter explained.
However, I do not see a better option for getting in touch with them. It is better we do not have more enemies than necessary. We will just have to hope that they read it.
Just as Clark was about to agree, the lights went out.
Don't bother.
A gravelly voice growled from the shadows. The bat was here.
You come to my city and threaten my children.
He had the same broken pattern of speech as his sons.
No, it was a misunderstanding. We were not trying to take you from your children,
he quickly replied. Maybe this was their chance to explain. A growling sound reverberated around the meeting room.
He tells the truth, Batman.
We meant your children no harm, I swear, Diana added.
Why come?
Was the response. Clark couldn't tell where the source was. He couldn't hear any heartbeat or breathing, other than that from the other members of the League. We have heard of your great strategy and fierce combat skills. The League is in need of more heroes, and we wish to give you an invite to become a member on a trial basis. Yeah, we didn't even know the birds existed until we were already in Gotham, Barry tacked on. We do not want to cause you any trouble. We brought gifts as a peace offering. Clark hoped that the bat realized they were telling the truth. A rough hum filled the room. He seemed to be contemplating if he could believe them or not. Gothamite told us what kind of things your kids like. We forgot to ask what they usually leave for you. We apologize for that. I do hope they enjoyed the presents. A moment's hesitation before...
They did.
Clark smiled.
All right.
So, will you join us? We would love to...
No. Do not enter city again.
The lights flickered back on. No bat to be seen. Well, at least you didn't drink our blood. Honestly, at this point, Clark couldn't be sure that Batman wasn't a vampire enough to argue with Barry. I suppose we shall have to look for someone else to join our numbers, Ja'an stated. Clark sighed internally. He kind of liked the bats now. They seemed like just a normal, kind of undead family. Plus, he didn't want to have to start the search over from the beginning. Yeah, I suppose so. And that is the end of Chapter 5. Author's Notes. This one was written on my phone, so hopefully I caught all the errors, but feel free to point out any if you see them. Let me know in the comments if you have a preference for italics or if I should underline the bird language the Batfam uses. I'm a bit worried the italics are harder to read/understand. See you soon for the final chapter. As always, comments, suggestions, questions, and constructive criticism are welcome. Chapter 6. Summary. Batman comes home. Author's Notes. I definitely didn't fall asleep editing this chapter. Thank you all for reading. I'm so happy my first fic has been enjoyed by so many people. I expected like 5 kudos, so thanks to each and every one of you. Also, thanks to those who comment. It makes my day. Anyways, hope y'all enjoy the ending. Now, on to the fic. Bruce wasn't fully sure how to feel. He didn't think that the Justice League was lying, but that didn't mean he was happy with them. Even accidentally, they had hurt his kids, and that was not something he forgave easily. He was, however, happy that he could tell the boys that they had nothing to fear. Nothing other than some idiots who wanted their father to join their team. The Hall of Justice, this team was worse at naming things than Dick was, had been worryingly easy to break into. How they hadn't been taken out by a villain yet was a mystery. It hadn't even been difficult to find its location. It would take a determined archenemy 6 hours to find them and wipe them out with a proper plan. Bruce was working around ways to increase security for the headquarters before he realized he wasn't even joining the team. Curse his puzzle-loving brain. He filed the ideas away anyway, just in case they came in use later. The Batmobile came to a screeching halt in the cave before Batman exited. He looked up to see all 4 of his sons sitting near the Batcomputer in uniform. Batman tilted his head.
Everything all right?
You went to the Justice League. Of course, they'd figured it out already. He'd been hoping they wouldn't notice until he came back and could explain, but they were always in his business. He shouldn't have expected any difference today. He sighed.
Yes, we have nothing to fear from them.
What did they have to say for themselves? Dick asked first. You told them you would never leave us, didn't you, Dee? Tim added.
Father, you threatened them to never come back, correct?
Damien tagged on. Jason just grunted to express his approval.
There's nothing to worry about, boys.
You know I'd never leave you. They did not want to steal me. They wanted me to join their team. This shocked the birds into a few seconds of silence. They didn't want to hurt you? Or us?
Dick didn't seem to believe him.
No. They said they admired us and were hoping for my help in the case of future large-scale emergencies. I declined them, of course.
He began to change out of his bat suit in the locker room, still within talking distance of his sons.
Oh? Why?
Tim spoke up. Sometimes Tim needed reminding that the family loved him and wasn't going to abandon him the first chance they got.
Because they hurt you. Even if it was not physical or purposeful, I will not put you at risk for a group of strangers.
You should join them, Jason finally spoke.
What?
He hesitated while taking off his boots.
You should join them, B. You haven't had friends for like 200 years at least. I think you should try it out. You said they didn't mean to scare us, and they brought us gifts. They don't seem to have ill intent, and they didn't attack you when you went to confront them. Plus, you said that it was just for large-scale attacks. How often do those happen? A handful of times a year? Maybe making a few friends will do you some good. If anyone can befriend a semi-immortal tired bat dad, I'd bet on a group that has aliens and gods.
No one spoke for a few moments. They were all thinking about what Jason had said. Damien spoke first, from his perch on Jason's lap.
Perhaps Todd is correct. It is not as if they can beat you, should it come to that, and you'll be able to gather more information on this League of Justice if you are close to them.
Not what I was going for exactly, but I appreciate the approval, baby bat.
Well, as long as you aren't gone for too long and you come back, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Tim spoke quietly.
Yeah, B, you should really have some friends by now. You've had 1,000,000 years to find one, and you still just spend all your time with us and Alfie.
Bruce wasn't sure how this conversation got turned into his kids bullying him.
I love you and Alfie.
We know, Dad, but you could have more people in your life than the 5 of us.
Dick seemed exasperated that he had had to explain this to him, like he was talking to a 5-year-old.
And they did give us very good gifts. Maybe they'll give us more if you go hang out with them.
Bruce knew he was joking, but Damien was still clutching to his new stuffed bat.
Sold to a group of strangers by my own sons. The horror.
He joked as he left the locker room, now in sweats and a hoodie.
I've never had a problem with having no friends before. Anyway, it's not like you boys have 100 friends lined up.
Then we'll be friendly with the League too. I think we should try it. If it doesn't work, we just quit and be done with it.
Bruce sighed.
I'll think about it. I don't like the idea of leaving you alone in Gotham.
All right, Mother Hen. When you do agree, let us know.
His sons were way too confident. Not that it was unwarranted. He usually caved to anything they wanted. He wasn't so sure this time. Who knew what this group was capable of? The family headed upstairs for lunch. Distracted by their conversation, the birds had forgotten to take off their uniforms from the early night patrol. One look from Alfred had them sprinting back down the stairs to change.
So, you went to talk to the Justice League, did you?
How do you already know that?
Bruce chirped.
Master Bruce, I believe you forget that I have raised you for centuries. You cannot keep things hidden from me.
He was right.
They didn't mean any harm. It was just a misunderstanding.
Of course it was. If you had looked into the Justice League when they first arrived, you would have known they were a group intent on doing good. I assume they wanted you to join them.
He was scolded by his father.
On a trial basis,
he said pettily. Sometimes he wished his father wasn't always right.
The butler approved. And your response?
I told them not to return to Gotham.
He was so in trouble.
I do hope you were not rude, were you, my boy?
Alfred glared at him.
They scared the kids. Dick was crying.
He tried to defend himself.
I believe I raised you better than that, Master Bruce.
He finished plating lunch.
We will be going back to apologize for your rudeness after lunch.
There was no figuring out how he knew the League would still be at the hall, but if Alfred said they were going, They were going.
Yes, Alfred. We're going to see the League? I want to thank Superman for my hoodie.
The boys walked in at the end of their conversation.
The old man got scolded, Jason said. Someone has to apologize,
he sang. Damien was on his shoulders, and Tim was clinging to his chest like a koala. Bruce was sulking near the counter.
And when you met the Justice League, did you not also yell at them to leave the city? Dick did.
Tim! Dick cried.
That was different, eh? They were trying to steal Dad. Did you give them a chance to explain themselves, or did you immediately yell at them?
No one spoke.
As I thought, we shall all go to the Hall of Justice after lunch to apologize. Now, sit and eat. And no eating with your claws. We have silverware for a reason. Yes, Alfie.
It was petty, but Bruce felt a little better that he wasn't the only one in trouble. He made sure not to touch any of the food with his claws while eating. Being in trouble with Alfred, for one thing, was enough. The League had spent most of the night in the meeting room, trying to come up with another hero to invite. It didn't help that trying to meet the Bat had messed up their sleep schedules. Clark was pretty sure that Barry was actually asleep right now.
Wonder Woman, we've eliminated every candidate we can think of. Maybe we should just drop the subject for a while. We can try again some other time. Superman, we cannot survive another attack without more, stronger members. We have barely escaped the last 3 encounters with everyone alive. I will not stop until we can come up with a solution.
Clark wanted to groan. He loved Dee, but when she put her mind to something, there was no stopping her. Who knew how long they'd be searching? Clark wished they'd explained themselves to the birds better. He couldn't be scared of them now, not after seeing them so fearful of losing their father. At least the Bat had confronted them, even if Clark was still scared of him. Hopefully, the Bat explained to his birds that it truly was a misunderstanding. He was miserable at the idea that there were teenagers out there waiting for them to swoop in and steal their only parent. Maybe he could convince Wonder Woman to allow them a break at least.
I get it, Dee, but maybe...
The lights cut out again. The Bat? Before anyone could really react, they were back on. That hadn't happened last time. Looking around, he could see what looked like the birds, sans blood. Next to them was a looming black figure, more shadow than man. On the other side of him was an older man, wearing a suit for some reason. The suit man had none of the cryptic features of the birds and the Bat. No black eyes or long claws. Somehow, in a room with 5 unknown creatures, Clark was most confused about this normal-appearing man.
Bats, birds,
Diana greeted politely.
I'm sorry, sir. I do not believe we have had the pleasure.
Her politeness seemed to please the elderly man.
I am Alfred, Your Highness. It is a pleasure to meet you.
You as well, Alfred.
And please, just Diana is fine.
He smiled kindly at her.
I am terribly sorry to barge into your meeting in such a way, but I do believe my son has something he'd like to say.
Son? Clark was even more confused now. The Bat was shuffling next to Alfred, seemingly nervous. The thought was ridiculous to him. The birds were also not making eye contact with them, as far as Superman could tell. After a moment of silence, Alfred cleared his throat. The Bat hunched into himself a bit. This whole scenario was baffling Clark, who sat in confused silence. No one in the Justice League dared move, confused as well.
Sorry,
the Bat rasped. What?
For?
Alfred prompted. Was this the Bat's dad? This normal guy? Sure, he was older, but not centuries, surely.
Yelling to not come to Gotham,
he growled quietly. Another look from his father, and the Bat said,
and scaring you.
Alfred nodded, satisfied.
Boys?
He turned to the birds. Robin chittered something at Alfred, seemingly upset, but
quickly backed down once Alfred glared at him.
We're so sorry,
they rasped. Alfred nodded again, before turning back to them.
I would also like to apologize. I thought I had raised my family better than that, but it seems I was mistaken.
The cryptids behind the man shuffled their feet some more.
We're the ones who should be sorry. We didn't mean to scare you, and we didn't explain ourselves very well. The sentiment is appreciated, Superman.
Alfred clapped his hands together.
Now, if you would still have him, my son would love to join your team.
The bat squawked, looking at his father with betrayal. The birds chirped at him, excited and smiling now. Diana beamed at the family. We would be delighted to have him. The bat glared at Wonder Woman, but she did not flinch. Barry and Ollie seemed to slide further under the table to avoid the glare. Jean had not moved since the group arrived.
Wonderful. We shall let you get back to your meeting now. Thank you for the hospitality.
Some of the birds whined at that. Nightingale turned to Clark, who tried very hard not to flinch at the sudden intense gaze.
Thank you for
His voice was as raspy as last time. It took him a moment before Clark realized he was talking about the sweater. He smiled at the bird.
You're welcome. I'm happy you enjoyed it.
While they had their exchange, Cardinal had moved closer to Diana. His voice was deeper but quieter than his older brother's.
Cooler than him.
He grinned as he pointed to the bat. He looked at his son with resignation. While the older two had come forward to talk to the League, the younger two had stayed behind. Robin had gotten under the bat's cape and onto his back while growling. He did not seem happy to be here. Magpie had stood behind Alfred, but was making uninterrupted eye contact with Martian Manhunter, who stared right back.
Come along. You will have to get ready for evening patrol.
The family gathered up again, only for the lights to flicker off as they had before. When the room lit up again, they had vanished. That family was terrifying. Arrow and Flash seemed more scared of the group than ever, and John had not spoken since before they had shown up.
Can I be excused from any future missions to Gotham?
Flash squeaked, more than halfway under the table. Arrow was right next to him.
Ditto. I thought one bat was terrifying. Now there's 6 of them.
Do not be ridiculous. I do not believe Alfred was a bat or a bird.
Yeah, but he controlled them. What kind of man has that power?
Barry jumped back up to full height.
Oh, I'm sure he's not a man.
But I couldn't quite tell what he was, she responded. They seemed like a kind family, though. I look forward to getting to know the bat more. Clark couldn't help but agree. Well, not about Alfred being a man. That was new, and a little scary. But they did seem like a sweet family. He was excited for the next time he would see the bats and his birds. And that is the end of this fic. Author's notes. This accidentally turned into an Alfred is a badass fic, which isn't where I expected it to go, but I'm not super mad about it, lol. Hoping to write more for this series. I love these guys. As always, comments, suggestions, questions, and constructive criticism are welcome. Now, reader's notes. This is part of a series. There's 4 parts. I think they're all roughly the same length. Yeah, all roughly the same length. Well, actually, no. 2 are roughly the same length, and there's a shorter one shot, and then one that's unfinished. But, at this current moment, I don't plan on reading them, but if you guys really want to see the next part, maybe I will. Yeah, this was a fun fic to do. I haven't edited any of the bird noises yet at the time of reading this, but I hope that I enjoy that bit, because I was really looking forward to reading this fic specifically because I wanted to play around with that aspect of adding bird chirping noises. So I hope they turn out well, and I hope they sound good. Yippee! But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and bye!